I'm Jackie Bardsley, and this is my presentation on my capstone paper on how to get software project teams on the same page and coordinating effectively. Imagine a team of people working together on a software project, and they've decided on the scope and the requirements, and now they're working on coding and testing. Then two of the members of this team decide to make a change to one of the requirements. And there's only a small team of people working on the project team, and they're all right here, so we can just let everyone know verbally, or we could send an email. Now imagine what would happen if there were 100 people working on the project. Some of them would probably need to know about this change, but probably not all of them, and consider that in a typical software project there could be hundreds or thousands of these kind of changes and decisions made. How do we let everyone know who needs to know without overwhelming everyone else? Even if we have a small team, what if some of them are in a different location or a different time zone? How do we keep them in the loop? Another consideration is what happens when we have changes in team members. For example, if one or both of the people who just made this decision leave the team. What happens when other people have questions about it? And what about the new team members who join the project later? How will they know about the decisions that have been made? We refer to teams with changing membership as unstable teams. Software teams use a variety of informal and formal communication methods to coordinate their work. In this paper, informal communication methods are those such as conversations and emails and informal meetings, wall charts, etc. The information is exchanged, but it's not documented, or at least in the case of emails, it's not in a format that others can find it later. Formal communication methods are things like documents, work plans, minutes of meetings. These are documents usually saved electronically so that they can be accessed by other team members later. Team communication platforms are a type of social media software, typically including wikis, discussion threads, notification alerts. The Slack platform is the fastest growing example of this kind of a software tool. Team communication platforms offer many of the benefits of both formal and informal methods. Discussions are visible and searchable rather than hidden in email, so they're a type of formal communication. However, they do tend to be quick and easy to use. The trade-offs are that informal methods are quick and efficient, but the information isn't accessible to others, whereas formal methods make the information accessible, but they can be slow and time-consuming. There are several potential problems we have to consider when we're assessing team communication methods. One of them is leaving people out of the loop. If we leave people out of the communication loop, that can create more rework later. Also, people may disagree or forget what was decided in verbal communication. And time can be wasted when information isn't accessible or when it's hard to find. Taking account of team size, location, and stability can help project managers assess the trade-offs between the different communication methods. For example, face-to-face conversations may have fewer drawbacks when team members are located in an open plan area so everyone can participate. Another thing we have to consider is information overload. In general, team coordination will improve when communication increases. However, productivity can start to decline when team members start receiving too much information that isn't relevant to them. They can spend so much time attending status meetings and reading emails that they can't get their work done. As background, here's a little history on how coordination in software development teams has changed over the last couple of decades. In traditional software projects, communication was primarily based on documentation. Projects moved through phases such as requirements, design, and testing, and so on, and at the end of each phase there was documentation and approval. This was called the waterfall method, and this process could take years. It's way too slow and inflexible for today's business world. So in 2001, a group of software professionals got together and they developed an entirely new way of developing software and coordinating work, and it's called the Agile method. In the Agile method, work is broken down into small projects that can be completed by small teams of up to 9 people working together in a co-located space. So this allows them to coordinate using conversation rather than documentation. And one of the critical coordination methods in Agile software development is the 15-minute daily stand-up meeting, which is attended by all team members. There's minimal documentation, and things like written work plans are replaced by temporary wall charts, as shown in the figure. And these Agile standards have been widely adopted all over the world, and over half of all software projects today use these Agile methods. Software projects have special characteristics that require close coordination. The work of software teams is highly interdependent, and they're always working with changing scope and requirements. So it's really important that all the team members know what's going on in the rest of the project. So although proponents of Agile software development claim that documentation is inefficient and not necessary, my thesis is that project managers of large, distributed, or unstable project teams will improve the outcome of software projects by incorporating more formal communication methods to coordinate their work. My proposed solutions tied directly to the literature, so I'm going to discuss the solution and the supporting research together. This three-step model can be used for initial team planning and also throughout a project as conditions change and as team members change. The first step is to select the preferred communication methods based on team size, location, and stability. Teams that are small, co-located, and stable can rely on informal communication methods, which are very efficient. These methods include face-to-face conversations, daily stand-up meetings, wall charts, and these methods have been proven successful in small teams of up to 9 members. For small distributed teams, technology and training can overcome a lot of the challenges of geographically distributed teams. And in fact, these teams can also rely on the same informal communication methods as local teams by simulating a co-located environment. Technologies such as always-on video and Agile software can support joint meetings with 2 teams in different locations, acting just like a co-located team. The literature provides a lot of examples where distributed teams perform just as well as co-located teams. This is why the research did not support my thesis. There is no support that adding documentation improves outcomes in small distributed teams. Teams that are planning to change team members should add a team communication platform or other type of documentation to their communication methods. This will allow new team members to get up to speed on important discussions that occurred before they join the team, and it can help mitigate the loss of knowledge that happens when team members leave. In practice, the work involved in software projects often involves hundreds of team members, and coordination is much more complex in large software teams. There's always an important role for informal communication, including conversations. However, large teams can't include all team members in every meeting or every conversation, and including everyone in the email distributions can result in information overload. So large teams have to use a combination of both formal and informal communication methods. So back to the 3-step model. Step 2 in the solution involves training team members. Research shows that high-performing teams anticipate the needs of their teammates rather than just responding to questions or pushing information to everyone. And team members are much more likely to anticipate their teammates' needs if they understand the overall project goals and they know what everyone else is working on. In the academic literature, this is called having a shared mental model. And the final step in the solution is ongoing measurement and improvement in coordination processes. This is particularly important when there are significant changes in the team, such as staff turnover, or changes in team member location, or when new technologies become available, but it's also important in an ongoing basis. Here's a brief overview on how I approached the work. I started by performing searches in the University of Denver Library and the University of Washington Library, and also Google Scholar, looking for peer-reviewed journals and articles that related to the topic of interest to me. I was also looking at the Project Management Institute database and various project management conference websites. I was using keyword searches, software team coordination, etc. And I was looking for articles that had agreement and also disagreement, because I knew that there were a lot of conflicting results out there, and I wanted to try to find the reasons why they were conflicting. The primary recommendations from my paper relate to improvements in training for project managers. The study exposed some gaps between what researchers are finding and how project managers are actually being trained. Professional training provides very little guidance on how project managers should select communication methods, taking account of team size, location, and stability. Also, it became really clear that project managers should be trained to spend more time communicating the team's goals and vision and what other team members are doing, because this will allow their teams to develop this shared team mental model, which is so important and which allows them to coordinate more efficiently. This topic is important to the fields of software development, communication, and conflict management. Large software projects fail at an alarming rate. Only 29% of large projects are considered to be successful. And although there's a lot of different factors contributing to success or failure, communication and coordination have been found to be very important factors. More effective team communication can help teams mitigate conflicts that have already occurred and ideally avoid future conflicts. The problem explored in my paper is how project teams find that balance between formal and informal communication methods. Project managers have to help their teams be efficient, but they also have to keep people in the loop on changing requirements, changes in scope, and decisions that have been made. The solution guides project managers to select appropriate communication methods based upon the team profile. This should allow project teams to be more effective and reduce conflict, which should ultimately improve the success of software projects. Here are the references I used in this presentation.